If you've ever asked a smart speaker for the weather or used a GPS app to get somewhere, then you've used artificial intelligence. AI isn't science fiction anymore. It's a part of our daily lives, and this is just the beginning. Now, this technology is moving so fast that it's hard to keep up. It brings with it incredible promise, but also raises serious questions, and for a lot of us, maybe a little bit of fear. As Catholics, we are called to engage with the world, not hide from it. So the question for us is, how can we approach AI using our faith and reason so that we don't fall into either blind optimism or paralyzing fear? And that's exactly what this lecture, AI, Foundations for the Faithful, is all about. In this first part of our lecture, we're going to lay the foundation. First, we'll start with the most basic question. What is artificial intelligence? Once we have a clear definition, we're going to bust two myths about it. And finally, we'll ground our whole conversation in the wisdom of the Church, looking at the key principles the Magisterium has given us. So, what is artificial intelligence? The term took off back in 1956, when a group of scientists organized a landmark workshop. Their goal was lofty. They wanted to figure out how to make a machine perform tasks that would be called intelligent if a human were doing them. They wanted to design machines that could handle tasks we usually associate with the human mind. Things like learning, reasoning, and solving problems. But what do we really mean when we say intelligent? It's not just about doing something complex. Think about the digger wasp. When the female wasp brings food back to her burrow, she has a strict routine. She puts the food down, goes inside to check for intruders, and only then brings the food in. But here's the interesting part. If a scientist moves the food just a few inches while she's inside, she'll come out and repeat the entire routine from the beginning, over and over again. Her behavior is complex, sure, but it's rigid. It's just an instinct. True intelligence, the kind a wasp does not have, is about being able to adapt to new situations. And that adaptability is exactly what researchers have been trying to build into machines. To build that, it helps to look at our own intelligence. Psychologists tell us that human intelligence isn't just one thing. It's a combination of many skills. So AI research has focused on trying to copy some of these key components, like learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and language. And this research has come a long way. AI has gotten quite good at specific things. We have AIs that can be the best human players at chess or help doctors diagnose diseases. But no program today can match our flexibility. These systems can handle a wide variety of tasks, especially things that require plain common sense. And that brings us to the kind of AI we interact with every day. Experts call it narrow AI. These are the systems designed for specific jobs like translating a language, recognizing your voice, or creating a picture from a text prompt. So how do they do it? Do they actually think like we do? The answer is no. Modern AI systems don't use logic and reason the way we do. Instead, they use something called statistical inference. That sounds complicated, I know, but the basic idea is quite simple. They learn by analyzing massive amounts of data to find patterns. A key part of this is something called generalization. Applying what you have learned to new situations. For instance, an AI can learn the add-ed rule for past tense verbs. Then it can see a new word like jump and figure out the past tense is jumped, even if it's never seen that word before. By spotting billions of patterns like this, the AI can then predict what should come next. A chatbot, for instance, doesn't understand your question. It's making an educated guess about which words are the most likely response. It's mimicking our ability to think, but it isn't actually thinking. It's a highly advanced form of pattern recognition. Because of these breakthroughs, AI is now handling many jobs that used to be done only by humans. This led researchers to dream about the next step, something they call artificial general intelligence. This will be a single AI that could do any intellectual task a human can. Some people even talk about a future superintelligence that will be smarter than us in every way. As you can imagine, that idea gets some people excited, but it causes deep concern for many others. And a lot of that concern comes from a basic misunderstanding, a confusion that starts with the name itself: artificial intelligence. That brings us to the next point, separating myth from reality. Let's start with the first myth, the idea that the intelligence in a machine is the same as the intelligence in you and me. The reality is that they aren't just a little different. They're fundamentally different. And to see this clearly, we first have to appreciate how rich our own intelligence is. Our intelligence isn't just a calculator in our heads. It's something that belongs to the whole person. It is so much more than just processed information. Let's look at a few things that make our intelligence unique. First, our intelligence is both logical and intuitive. There's a distinction from the classical tradition that helps explain this. It talks about two ways we know things. The first is ratio. That's our step-by-step analytical reasoning. And AI is fantastic at this. But there's another way we know, called Intellectus. This is our intuitive grasp of the truth, our ability to see the bigger picture. Think of it this way: ratio is like following a recipe, step by step. Intellectus is the chef's creative feel for the ingredients that lets him invent a brand new dish. An AI can follow the recipe perfectly, but it doesn't have that creative, intuitive spark. Second, our intelligence is embodied. We're not just minds floating around. We're a union of body and soul. Our thinking is shaped by our physicality, our senses, our emotions, and all our lived experiences. AI learns from data, just abstract information. It's never scraped its knee, felt the warmth of the sun on its face, or felt the joy of a hug. The mystery of incarnation shows us just how important and dignified our physical, embodied nature is. Third, our intelligence is relational. We were created for communion, for connection. Our minds are at their best when we are in dialogue, when we're working together, and when we love. This goes right back to our creation in the image of the triune God, a communion of persons. As St. Paul puts it, if you understand all mysteries and all knowledge, but don't have love, you are nothing. That ability to give ourselves to others, that's a form of intelligence no machine will ever have. Fourth, our intelligence is always searching for truth and meaning. Unlike a machine, we're not satisfied with data. We're built to ask, why? We have a deep built-in desire to contemplate what is true, good, and beautiful. An AI is just a tool for a specific function. It does not and cannot search for ultimate meaning. And finally, our intelligence makes us stewards of the world. We are called to care for creation and work with God's plan. This gives our actions a moral and spiritual purpose that a tool like AI can never have. So when you put this rich picture of human intelligence next to what a machine does, the difference is night and day. Artificial intelligence is all about function. It's measured by how well it can imitate what we do on the outside. But it says nothing about the inner life, the experience of being human. So here's the key takeaway. AI is a powerful tool that can perform tasks, but it does not think. So that's the myth about artificial intelligence. Now let's look at the second myth, which has to do with what AI produces. The second myth is one you hear all the time, that AI is objective and unbiased. This is a common but dangerous misunderstanding. We tend to think of computers as being pure logic. They don't have emotions or prejudices. So it seems like their conclusions should be totally neutral, right? Well, the reality is an AI system is only as good and as fair as the data we feed it. And where does that data come from? It comes from our world, a world filled with our biases. Let me give you an example. Imagine an AI is built to help a company screen resumes. Now, let's say it's trained on the company's hiring decisions from the past 50 years. And what if that history shows a bias against hiring women? Well, the AI won't see that as an injustice. It'll just see a pattern. And its job is to learn that pattern and then repeat it in its future recommendations. It's the same story for AIs trained on the internet. When they learn our language, they also learn our sins. As the Magisterium has pointed out, these programs can pick up our worst stereotypes. They can end up validating fake news. And they can reinforce the biases of the dominant culture. And that can do real damage to education. Here's the real danger. AI doesn't just copy our biases. It can amplify them. And what's worse, it hides them behind a mask of high-tech neutrality. The Magisterium warns us that in important areas like healthcare, a biased AI can spread errors like wildfire. This doesn't just lead to injustice for one patient, it can set off a chain reaction that creates deep social inequality. So we have talked about what AI is, and we have busted two myths, one about its intelligence and one about its objectivity. We can see that it's a formidable tool, but it also has serious limits and dangers. That leaves us with the question, how should we approach it? Where do we get our moral compass for this new world? Thankfully, we don't have to figure this out on our own. And that brings us to the final section of our introduction, the wisdom of the church. The church has been on top of this, actively engaging with AI and giving us a solid set of principles to guide our thinking. A great starting point is the Rome call for AI ethics. Back in 2020, the Vatican's Pontifical Academy for Life got together with major tech companies, I'm talking Microsoft, IBM, and they all signed this document. It basically calls for an approach they named Algor-ethics, which means building ethics right into AI from the very start. It's grounded in principles like transparency, responsibility, and reliability. Pope Francis has built right on that foundation. He calls AI the heart of the epochal change we are experiencing. It's a massive shift. He constantly insists that AI has to serve humans, not the other way around. He is also clear-eyed about its limits. He points out that its intelligence is incomplete and that it can hallucinate, which is a technical term for making stuff up. That's why he says our education about AI has to be about critical thinking. He even told the leaders at the G7 summit that AI is not really generative. He said a better word is reinforcing. It remixes what's already out there, and it often does it without checking for mistakes or biases. Then these teachings were developed even more in a 2025 document from the Vatican called Antiqua et Nova. It makes an important point. We should not see AI as an artificial person, but as a product of persons. The number one rule it gives is that AI must always uphold human dignity and serve the common good. The document also gives a strong warning against the technocratic paradigm, the false and dangerous belief that technology can solve all our problems on its own. And it warns us about how AI affects our relationships. It cautions us not to anthropomorphize these systems, not to treat them like humans, because doing that can weaken our real, authentic communities. And this deep engagement continues today with Pope Leo XIV. He sees AI as a new industrial revolution. And just like the first one, it demands that the church apply her social teaching to brand new problems. He has issued a global call to action, asking for responsibility and careful discernment from every single one of us. His teaching has a clear center. Humanity must always come before the algorithm. And his words on this are profound. The person is not a system of algorithms. He or she is a creature, relationship, mystery. So as we wrap up this first part of our conversation, we can note that the church's position is clear and balanced. The Magisterium sees that AI can do a lot of good. It can help spread knowledge and push science forward. But it's also aware of AI's limits and dangers. Out of all these teachings, one principle stands out. AI must always serve the good of every person. It has to uphold our dignity and be aimed at the common good, not just at making a profit. And maybe most importantly, it means that we have to be educated, discerning users. We have to remember that AI is a tool, not a person. Now that we have this foundation, we're ready to look more closely at the specific problems. In part 2, we'll dive into the challenges and the theological questions that AI brings to the table. In part 1, we built our foundation. We figured out what AI is and we busted some myths. And we looked at the church's guiding principles. Now in part 2, we're going to build on that and get into the specific challenges AI brings to our world. First, we'll tackle the information crisis that AI is creating. Second, we'll talk about the pastoral concerns for the church. And finally, to get to the bottom of these problems, we'll explore the notion of truth itself. In a perfect world, AI could be a wonderful tool for learning. You can imagine an AI that helps people understand complicated ideas, or points them toward truthful sources. But the reality we're living in right now is a lot messier. The way these systems work can pose a threat to good information. And it starts with a problem that's not even intentional. You have probably heard the term AI hallucination. That's when an AI makes something up. It gives you an answer that sounds confident and believable, but is partly or even completely false. And the damage from these kinds of mistakes, even when they're accidental, can be serious. But as bad as those accidental errors are, there's a much bigger problem. When people use AI on purpose to deceive and manipulate, this is where we run into the growing threat of deepfakes. These are realistic but fake images, videos, and even audio clips that are made using AI. And the Magisterium gives us a penetrating insight here. It reminds us that even though the images are fake, the damage they cause is real. These deepfakes leave deep scars in the hearts of those who suffer. and real wounds in their human dignity. This damage doesn't just stop with one person, it spreads to all of society. This flood of fake media messes with our basic connection to reality. It slowly eats away at the trust that holds us together. Think about it. If we can no longer believe what we see or hear, how can we function as a society? When deception becomes commonplace, the very trust our communities are built on starts to fall apart. This is why the church calls on all of us to be careful and wise online. We have a personal responsibility here. We need to think critically and check our sources before we share things. In this digital world, being discerning isn't just a good idea. It's a vital part of our witness as Christians. So this crisis of information and this breakdown of trust in the world naturally leads us to a more personal question. What happens when this technology shows up in the life of the church? This brings us to some pastoral concerns. The first and maybe the deepest concern is the risk of inauthenticity. Our faith is a living, breathing relationship with Christ. It's witnessed and shared in a community of real people. Think about the warmth of a greeting at a church door, the inspiring example of a catechist, the conviction in a priest's voice that you know comes from prayer. That real human witness, the kind that comes from experience, cannot be faked by an algorithm. And yet, more and more, we're seeing people turn to AI for spiritual advice. Now, an AI can certainly give a well-worded and comforting answer, but the church gives us clear warnings. AI is a tool, not a person. It gets dangerous when we let it replace our relationships with God and with each other. When that happens, we risk replacing authentic relationality with a lifeless image. And the final warning is the most serious. AI must never take the place of God. If we turn to a machine for the ultimate answers in life, we risk becoming enslaved to our own creation. There's a second pastoral concern, the danger of seeing discipleship as just a numbers game. AI is great at crunching data and tracking metrics. So it's really tempting to bring that into parish life, tracking attendance and engagement to see if we're successful. But our faith isn't a business, and you can't measure discipleship on a spreadsheet. The most important metric in the life of the church can't be tracked at all: the conversion of a single heart in the confessional. If we fall into this numbers-only approach to ministry, we risk boiling down the deep mystery of faith to a set of neat little data points, and we lose sight of the reality of grace. These pastoral concerns we have talked about, the threat to real, authentic witness, and the danger of reducing our faith to a set of numbers, aren't just practical problems. They point to something deeper. There's a tension between how this technology works and the very nature of truth. So when we talk about truth, what are we really talking about? St. Thomas Aquinas defines truth with a Latin phrase, adequatio rei et intellectus. It means the correspondence between the mind and the reality. Truth is when our minds match up with reality. A thought is true when it lines up with the way things actually are. Truth is not a personal feeling or a popular opinion. It is grounded in reality. But we also know that, in the end, the deepest truth isn't an idea at all. It's a person. As Jesus tells us, I am the way and the truth and the life. Now, if truth is about our minds matching reality, then our connection to reality is everything. Aquinas teaches that our whole journey of knowing starts with our senses. We see, we hear, We touch the world around us. Our senses are our main bridge to what's real. The starting point for everything we know is our direct physical interaction with the world. And this is why a deepfake is so dangerous. A deepfake attacks our basic way of knowing the truth by feeding a fake reality straight to our senses. But that's not the whole story. Our senses and our reason aren't the only ways we know the truth. As people of faith, we believe in a higher way of knowing, revelation. And revelation isn't something we figure out on our own. It's God actively and personally revealing himself to us. And the absolute fullness of that revelation is, you guessed it, a person, Christ. Remember when the Apostle Philip asked Jesus to show them the Father? His answer was simple. Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. So we have looked at the challenges from every angle, from society, from the life of the church, all the way down to the foundations of truth itself. Now it's time to shift our focus. In part 3, we're going to move from the challenges to the opportunities. We'll ask, how can a church use these new tools faithfully and fruitfully? In part 2, we looked at some challenges. We talked about the information crisis, the concerns for the church, and the tension between AI and the nature of truth. When you're faced with all of that, it'd be easy just to back away in fear. But our faith isn't about retreating. It's about engaging with the world. That brings us to the question for this final part of our lecture. How should a church engage with this new tool? Pope Francis reminds us that AI is both exciting and fearsome. The algorithms that run it are neutral. Their impact, for good or for bad, depends on how we choose to build and use them. So to help guide us, we're first going to lay out 3 basic principles for how we should approach AI. And with those principles as our guide, we'll look at some of the practical ways AI can help the mission of the church. Before we can get into what we can do with AI, we have to be clear on how we should think about it. First, the number 1 principle is always the dignity of the human person. Every new technology has to be judged by one simple standard. Does it serve us, or do we end up serving it? This makes us look attentively at the societal impacts of AI, especially on jobs. As AI starts to automate more and more tasks, we have a responsibility to create policies that prevent massive inequality. We have to make sure this technology serves the common good, instead of just enriching a select few. Second, we must emphasize authentic human relationships. Professor Po-Shen Law, who used to coach the U.S. Math Olympiad team, makes a fascinating point. He argues that as AI gets better and better, even surpassing our own creativity, the most important human skills won't be technical. There'll be things like kindness and empathy. This focus on human connection draws a clear line. It shows us when AI is an exciting tool versus a fearsome one. If we use AI to build relationships and strengthen our communities, that's a good thing. But if it isolates us, if it replaces our human encounters with shallow simulations, and turns us into recluses with digital friends, then it becomes something to fear. Professor Law's idea is that the huge challenges of the future are going to be too complex for any single person to solve. We'll need to collaborate. And in that kind of world, what makes someone want to team up with you? It's your character. It's your ability to be a kind person who genuinely helps others. He believes that our best hope for solving civilization-threatening challenges is to build a network of clever, kind people who know and trust each other. The third principle is about our human and spiritual growth. Think about this. As AI gets more efficient, it's likely that we'll have to work less to meet our basic needs. That means we're going to have more free time. The question is, what are we going to do with that time? As Saint Josemaria Escrivá said, for those of us who care about souls, time is glory. Our job is to form a new generation that knows how to use this gift of time well, not for laziness or sin, but for the glory of God and for serving others through family, community, and prayer. With those three principles, dignity, relationships, and spiritual growth as our guide, let's turn to the exciting side of AI. If we use it wisely, AI can help the church in so many ways. The main idea here is letting AI handle the mechanical stuff so that we can focus more on the heart of ministry. We can group these positive applications into three main areas. First, AI can help free up our priests and parish staff for actual ministry by helping with parish operations. So much time in a parish gets eaten up by administrative work. Imagine an AI that can help draft the first version of the bulletin announcements, manage the parish database, or organize volunteer schedules. The point isn't to replace staff or volunteers. It's to free them from being stuck behind a computer so they can spend more time doing the things that only humans can do, welcoming new families, visiting the sick, and building authentic community. Second, AI can be a huge help in evangelization and catechesis. For a director of religious education or a catechist, an AI can be like a creative partner. It could help you brainstorm a lesson plan on the corporal works of mercy, or pull together resources from 2,000 years of church teaching using a tool like Magisterium AI. It could even help you adapt the same lesson for second graders and for high schoolers. This lets the catechist spend less time on the busy work of prep and more time on the one thing a machine cannot do, giving their personal, loving witness to the faith. And third, AI can act like a personal assistant for a priest, helping him be a better shepherd to his flock. Now, preparing a homily is a deeply spiritual and personal thing, but AI can be a research partner. It can help a priest find insights from the church fathers, or find a modern story to illustrate an ancient truth. On the practical side, it can also be an organizational tool, helping him manage a demanding schedule. By taming his inbox and calendar, AI can help protect the time a priest so desperately needs for his prayer, for his study, and for simply being present to his people. As we wrap things up, we find ourselves right back where we started. We have seen that artificial intelligence is a tool filled with promises and dangers. In part one, we laid our foundation. We defined AI and saw the huge difference between how a machine, quote-unquote, thinks, and the richness of our human intelligence. In part two, we looked at the challenges AI brings to our society, to the church, and even to our basic grasp of truth. And just now, in part three, we have mapped out a way forward, a path of faithful engagement, guided by our commitment to human dignity, authentic relationships, and our ultimate call to glorify God. The path forward isn't about blindly accepting every new thing. It isn't about rejecting it all in fear either. It's a path of informed, prayerful discernment. It calls on us to build and use these tools in a way that helps us become more human, not less. It calls us to have what the Magisterium calls the wisdom of the heart. This will ensure that in this digital age, our technology stays firmly in the service of humanity, and that humanity stays always open to God, who is the way, the truth, and the life.